residents on those islands and encouraging them that if such evacuation mandate comes forward, to heed the warning and to accept it. So at this time, of course, we do not know. As I said earlier, we have to wait for greater clarity, and at that time we will get out and try and encourage our residents to take the advice.
So Mayor, as of now, the hospitals in your area are planning to stay open. Is there any feeling that that could change? And in terms of the city's emergency services, will they be responding to calls during the storm?
The plan is never to respond during the storm once it gets over a certain wind threshold. So we encourage folks to hunker down, be prepared, be vigilant. But once we get into the eye of the storm, so to speak, we do not plan to go out and do many rescues at that time.
To the residents of Daytona Beach and the people who might be visiting, because it is, after all, holiday weekend, what do you want to say to them tonight?
Be smart, be vigilant, be prepared, but above all, be safe. We recognize that it is a holiday weekend, but life takes precedence over pleasure at this time, and we're used to this as a municipality. So I just encourage our folks to put forth their best effort to take care of themselves and their families.
Mayor Henry, you be safe as well. Please let us know how we can help, and thank you for taking the time. All our best in the coming days.
Thank you, sir.
Next, the president weighs in on this storm and the question of why he fired one of his closest aides, the one who probably sees him more than anyone day to day. Later, you'll meet a Texas woman who says when it comes to the possibility of the president taking her land to build his border wall right smack through her property, she's drawing the line.
Well, I'll forward one this. I'm just going to go through the weather. The hurricane related stuff. Not the politics and stuff. The weather. A reflection in the weather of what happened to the DJ. That's what I know. I know that for sure.
They say
a reflection in the weather of what happened to the DJ. The former DJ. DJ Ming. I listened to his mix yesterday, his music. I like it. It reaffirmed what I felt, actually. What I thought I felt was reaffirmed. He's a loving guy, a good guy. And he's a torture victim. It's not cool.
Is that what they want?
this is something you have to do.
This is one of the most unique environments on Earth. How many hours have you been on the boat? It's a humanitarian crisis growing by the day. You've got to do justice to the story. How has your life been affected? I won't say you ever really make peace with it, but you can bear witness. There are very little signs of normal human life. You can't not feel some level of personal impact. Clarissa Ward, CNN, London.
I'm Wolf Blitzer. This is CNN.
We just received yet another update from the National Hurricane Center, and Hurricane Dorian is now a Category 4 hurricane. That is a catastrophic hurricane. So the concerns about that, plus once-in-a-year high tides, are raising concerns about all of the low-lying areas in and around Miami, which are already prone to flooding. Congresswoman Donna Shalala is a newly minted representative from Miami who served for a long time as president of the University of Miami and was a member of President Clinton's cabinet. She joins me now. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us. The fact that this hurricane could make landfall during what's called a king tide, one of the highest tides of the year, how concerned are you about the degree to which that could magnify the storm's impact?
Very concerned. Already Miami Beach is flooding. We've already seen the initial effect of king tides, which of course are the highest of the highest tides. So we're very concerned and we're preparing for the worst.
How are you preparing?
Well, we're doing everything we can. Both the mayor of Miami-Dade County and the governor have already issued warnings in the community, and everybody is gassing up. They're boarding up their houses. They're putting their shutters in place. They're getting 7 days of food and water. Because that's our estimate. This is going to go on for a while from every evidence that we have. It's not just going to be one hit. It's going to go on for 2 or 3 days.
As of now, any evacuation orders planned?
There are none so far, just preparations for everyone to stay in their own homes at the moment. But I would not be surprised if we do get some evacuation orders. I'll be at the Emergency Operations Center tomorrow to talk to the mayor, and we'll see where we go from there.
And just to be
of
clear,
course, we're not very precise about where it's going to hit, but we do know that it's going to have a huge effect in Miami-Dade County, in South Florida, and all the way up the coast. So everyone has to be prepared. And frankly, Floridians are pros. We've been through this before. We know how to prepare. And that's exactly what we're doing.
We just got word in, and people can see it on the screen. We just got word that they're going to be a mandatory evacuation order in some parts of Brevard County starting Sunday. So some communities in Florida are beginning to make that decision. And despite what the president said earlier, it's a local decision. Evacuation orders are made at the local level, not made at the federal level. Nevertheless, people need to pay attention. And this storm has been so difficult to predict, which is why I know some of these local officials are waiting. Just to be clear about the flooding, it doesn't have to be a direct hit on Miami or Miami-Dade for there to be flooding. It's almost inevitable that there's going to be some serious flooding in these areas that you know about, correct?
There is going to be serious flooding, and we've already had that experience. It's going on now. I'm as worried about the flooding as I am about the other direct hits from the hurricane. Remember, after Hurricane Andrew, this community and many of the communities in Florida changed their building codes. So we have much stronger building codes than we've ever had before. But trees fall on houses, and we have flooding across South Florida. And so we have to be prepared for everything.
Congresswoman Shalala, thank you very much for being with us tonight and getting that message out. Hopefully people will heed the warning. Up next, we're going to go back to Tom Sater for more on the storm that has just become a Category 4 hurricane.
Well, that's weird. Eagle boys. Birds, oracles, bees. 158, that's the value of Hurricane Dorian. If you add up all the letters in Hurricane Dorian, they add up to 158. 173 people died in that disaster. Firestorm equals 123. Nathan died in Black Saturday firestorm. I was talking about that before. 173 people died in the firestorm. Canberra had its own firestorm, also on a Saturday. 158, Hurricane Dorian. The one I was talking about, Gabrielle. Dorian, the destroyer. Dorian, the DJ. How's this work? I don't know. I don't really know. 9:26 a.m. Singapore time. A DJ tortured, and a reflection of his torturers. Sickos, sadists. That's what they are. I've done enough research. If Singapore wants to tell me they did not torture the DJ, I'm gonna need to see his butt cheeks. Otherwise, I'm telling the truth. He's a torture victim. I know what kind of people these torturers are. And I don't buy their lies. I don't believe their lies. I don't accept their lies. And I do not accept their claim that they do not torture people. Not for a second. Not even for a second. So there's only one way to convince me, and I think there's going to be only one way to convince a lot of people. And that is to show us the DJ's butt. Show us that it's okay. Not scarred by violence. That's the only way you're going to convince me that you did not torture him. Otherwise you need to release him. Because you are far worse. You are real criminals. You torturers, you sickos, you sadists. You are the real criminals. You have no right to hold anybody in jail. Let alone people you've tortured. Torture victims cannot be imprisoned by their torturers. It simply goes against basic human rights to the most extreme degree. Physical torture that scars the skin, scars the body, and then to be held in the captivity of those people is inhumane to the absolute extreme. It's hell on earth. That's what it is. Hell on earth. And you can't have that and claim that you beat Hitler in the war. The war that was against what? What was World War II against? Against evil, they say. Why was it evil?
Just before the break, mandatory evacuations are now being ordered for parts of Brevard County. They affect those who live on the barrier islands, including areas from the Kennedy Space Center south to the beaches and Merritt Island. Also being told to evacuate people in mobile homes or manufactured housing or in flood-prone areas and those with special medical needs. And again, Dorian was just upgraded to a Category 4 hurricane. So let's go right back to Tom Sater. Tom, give us the latest on that.
Not a big surprise, John. At the top of the hour, mentioned at the 8 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center that we saw the greatest drop in pressure from any advisory to the next. It's a 20 millibar drop. What that means is when that pressure drops significantly, it takes a while for the winds then to pick up. It's just getting stronger. Yesterday at this hour, it was a Category 1. Expecting to go to 2 at 11 p.m. and it did. That means in a 24-hour period, we have now jumped from a Category 1 hurricane to a Category 4. This is amazing. Could it get to a 5? Yes, it can, and most likely will now. When you look at a well-defined eye like this, and we've got, we're still over 500 miles away from, let's say, the coast of Florida, we've got a lot more warmer water to contend with. I mean, we go from the mid-80s to the upper 80s, and that's significant. Now, when you look at this track, I want to point out a few things. Here we are currently at a Category 4. Then notice how it goes to 3, then back to 4. This is going to be a new track in 2 hours. So what they're showing us here is still the older track, but what it is currently. So at about 11 p.m., we're going to get a new track from the National Hurricane Center, and it's going to be interesting to see. Are we going to see a 5 moving into the area? A couple things to just recap this 8 p.m. advisory. What does this tell us? First and foremost, all of Florida is still in that cone of uncertainty. As this storm now continues to build, those strong winds, hurricane winds and tropical storm force winds, will continue to expand. So that storm not only will look larger on a satellite imagery, those winds will be wider and stronger. So everyone is still involved here. The other thing to look at is when we get in closer, we're looking at a slow process of heavy rainfall. Again, saturated ground. They can't take much. It's like trying to pour water into an empty bucket. Well, now this bucket is full, and we're going to drop a dump truck on top of it. The other thing, we still have the possibility of this thing sliding off the coast and edging to the east. But one last thing. It is going to make landfall right now as a Category 4. Here's the definition of Category 4. Catastrophic damage will occur. Well-built frame homes can sustain severe damage with loss of most of roof structures and some exterior walls. Power could be out for weeks or months, and most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks.
Tom Sater, thank you very much for joining us. Stay with CNN, special coverage of Hurricane Dorian all weekend long. And when we come back, the AC360 special, Anderson's remarkable conversation with Howard Stern.
Seems to be getting scarier. Dorian. It's a message, it's a warning, I know that. It's a reflection. It's not a warning, it's a reflection of what they did to the DJ. It's simple. Category 5 caning is horrifying. It's the horror. It's the hurricane. The warning's coming from Gabriel. I know that. It is a warning. But is it for Gabriel or Dorian? Is it Dorian the DJ or Dorian the destroyer? So you can be powerful and yet not be deadly. You can be destructive and not be deadly. This hurricane's coming in slowly, taking its time. So people at least have time to move. The thing with the DJ is he couldn't move because they strapped him to a trestle. They strapped him to a trestle. And then they're targeting his backside with a cane that they're swinging at about 160 kilometers an hour.
Find all people interesting, and
You've never interviewed Biden?
no, I've never interviewed Biden. There's something interesting in everyone.
European Airlines at a cross.
The DJ. We're back to real time. It's caught up to real time. That was pretty full on. What we saw just before. Kind of scary, actually. It gets scary when they get, see what I said, see, when it gets to Cat 5, the panic starts to come into, it starts to come into the voices of the presenters, the meteorologists, the newsreaders. Everyone starts to feel that edge of panic. Can you imagine being strapped to a trestle, knowing that you're about to get 24 strokes of the Category 5 cane? The cane equals 56. Whip is 56. It's like a big whip. You've just watched the person before you being caned. Hurricane Dorian, 158. It's moved. It's now 15.8 degrees in Sydney. I think it was Melbourne before. 173 people died in that disaster. Kinglake West equals 137. I had just said that, and the bee landed on my thumb. So my thought then was, well, maybe it's Melissa, Hurricane Melissa. And then I thought maybe it's, before that I was thinking Lorenzo. Then Gabriel, because Michael and Gabriel are archangels. Michael was a bad one last year. And so I started thinking twins. I have to be honest, the other day when I saw this, 1989, the year Jake was murdered, abducted. The DJ's been abducted. He has been abducted. He's in a captivity in the clutches of the people who tortured him. Physically, mentally, emotionally tortured him. And he can't stay there. He's dreaming nightmares. To be in the captivity of your torturers with post-traumatic stress disorder inflicted by them. The only reason he's got post-traumatic stress disorder is because of the torture that was inflicted on him by his torturers. But he's got it. He's got it now. Anyone who comes through Cat 5 caning is going to have post-traumatic stress disorder for sure. Nathan, 58. Nathan. Steam equals 58. There was a red eruption of Steenberg Kaiser. There was. Sign equals 49. The word sign. Fire is 38. Ocean is 38. My, M-Y. My sign. My sign. Steamboat. Geyser. A red eruption warning sign. That's what I said. I said it because Jake and Nathan told me. There's going to be a red eruption of Steenberg Geyser. It's those things that make no sense. Those are the things I know mean something. Nathan born on the 24th of November. The 24th of the 11th. When I saw Dirty Girl, I thought, yeah, it's definitely Gabriel. David is Nathan's middle name. What other names are on this year's hurricane name list, apart from Dorian, the one that's obviously going to be remembered? Hurricane name list. There will be something on CNN again soon, I guess. And when it comes on, I'll put it on. Sydney got some good rain yesterday. Maybe still raining there now. Not so much. But it is raining to the north. It's clearing out, I guess. Yeah, it's easing off. But at least somewhere got some rain. Finally. I mean, we didn't get any, but somewhere got some. And it's a good way to show the current date and time. 11:35. It's the 31st of August 2019, so things are starting to change. Hurricane name list, I was going to go look at that. Hurricane name list. Retired Atlantic hurricane names. Andrew. Jacksonville, named after Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States. Is your name on the list? Hurricane name list. Okay, that's what comes up when you put hurricane name list. If you put tropical cyclone name list, different stuff comes up. Tropical cyclone. Cyclone. Name list. Tropical cyclone naming. This will give us a list of names. The first one I looked at was Lorenzo, because that was the one. All the bad boys guessed Lorenzo back in 2013. Melissa means honeybee. So those two are together. Barry was a hurricane. Chantel was nothing to worry about, Chantel. Dorian, we all know about Dorian. Erin was nothing much, but she's been. The next one will be Fernand, and then Gabriel, the one I've been looking at most recently, until Dorian cranked up. Dorian was interesting because he was not expected to survive. He's a survivor and a fighter, and now he's becoming a monster. It's kind of what I was thinking, Lorenzo. Dorian is actually what I had in mind. How I visualized Lorenzo is exactly how Dorian is. Dorian. Anyway. Singapore. Jail, prison. 20 years. 24 strokes of the Cat 5 cane. Something you can't imagine the fear, the terror, and the horror, and the agony unless you experienced it. You simply can't. And for someone who is sensitive, someone with a loving heart, a child of Gabriel, it's beyond what can be withstood. So it's far beyond. So it's beyond cruel. It's beyond sadistic. That's why I was in Singapore just before. Now we're in Jacksonville. It's scary. Hurricane Dorian, 158. Hugo made landfall on the 22nd of September, 1989. I didn't know there was a Gabrielle in 1989 until a couple of days ago. Is there going to be another warning sign from Steamboat Geyser? Gone back away? I noticed Daniel from Florida, Aaron and Melissa from Chile. People who saw that eruption. William means warrior, a truth warrior, a pain warrior, perhaps. Someone who pushes through the pain. Dorian pushed through the pain. That's what I was visualizing for Lorenzo. That's what I was thinking. Anne. The last named cyclone in Australian waters was Anne. Last season. It's full on, man. Full on scary. Cat 5 caning. Terrifying. Horrifying. Really scary. Hard to keep up with something like this. Hard to keep up. You can't actually process things that are really, really bad. Your brain can't process it. So when it comes to Cat 5 caning, like what they do in Singapore, your brain can really only... It's extreme pain. The pain goes through the whole body. It's not confined to where it hits. It's not confined to where it hits. It goes through the whole body of the person, the victim. Because the pain is so much, the brain struggles to interpret what's happening, as you can understand. When you're talking a cane that's travelling at 160 kilometers an hour, it's not like just getting a few tickles on the rump from the headmaster back in the old days at school. There were sadistic headmasters who used to torture students back in the day. Roald Dahl wrote about one such person in his book, Boy. We'll take the caning that's described in Boy, the bad caning, and multiply that by a factor of about 10. And then you've got what they did to the DJ. As if he was Satan. As if criminals are, Satan. Because you've broken the law, you're Satan, and you deserve to be flogged to the extreme. But what if that one you've judged as being a demon because he photoshopped a couple of horns onto his head, and maybe the judge checked that out and looked at that and said, you know what, I'm going to teach this boy a lesson. I'm going to give him the maximum sentence. Yeah, maybe that's the thinking behind it. Because 24 is an unusual. It's an extremely severe sentence. As Yiming himself pointed out, there are rapists, child rapists and murderers who don't get sentenced as harshly as he was sentenced. And I'm sure he was a little bit confused by that. Why such an extreme sentence? I don't think he really has a clue how bad the caning he would now that it's happened. Now that he's in shock, post-traumatic shock land, post-traumatic stress disorder they call it. It's really shock land. It's shock land. It's the land after the Cat 5 caning. It's the land of nightmare. Horror. Yesterday I clicked on this photo, I think it was this one, and it brought up his music. Yeah, it was this one. Pretty sure it's this one. His music is still online, you can listen to his music. I think it was this one. He wanted to be able to get married, have kids. When he eventually grew up, he was in no hurry to grow up, obviously. 47 past, the last eruption of Steamboat Geyser. 47 minutes past the hour. We're not talking a smack. Smack equals 47. Sometimes a naughty boy needs a smack. A few tickles on the rump does a naughty boy no harm. That's what Roald Dahl wrote. But we're not just talking tickles. When this headmaster took his cane out to thrash someone, some student who'd broken the law, the rules, he wasn't just tickling. I read that when I was about 13, you know. It had a big impact on me. Maybe I was 13, maybe I was 12, maybe I was 14, I don't know. Nathan David Breeze, 159. Born on the 24th of November, 1995. The Storm Boy, 160. Wedge-tailed Eagle, 125 is the value of wedge-tailed eagle. Nathan died on the 7th of February. He was born on the 24th of November, 1995. Died on the 7th of February, 2009. Black Saturday, bushfires. Black Saturday has the same value as the name Ming Yuen. What is the shadow of God? Who is the authoritarian? It's a different one. It's different. So you bring joy and happiness to people through music, and then they strap you to a trestle and cane you because you were also a drug addict and a drug trafficker. This is different. This is not what I found yesterday. Raving like a lunatic. It completely consumed. I think I really do know who this guy is. I have a real feel for him. He would not have a clue. I don't think he had really any clue what was going to happen to him in the hands of these sadists that passes for a justice system in Singapore. It's actually a bunch of sadists who obviously are sickos, and they get off on torturing people. And torture is the right word for it. Bringing people together through music. I told you, he's someone who likes to bring joy to people. Yeah, I heard him talking about bass in the interview. If you're a DJ, I guess it helps if you like bass. Man, I don't understand how people can just Poor guy. Poor guy. I just think I don't even have words. People can be so cruel. 9:52. People can be monsters, unfortunately. And they are, in Singapore. It's not a justice system. It's a den, that's what I'd call it, a den of torturers, a den of sickos, a den of sadists. And if democracy means anything, if freedom is a word that actually has any meaning, any real meaning, then everybody, in every country that has any sense of human decency, not just the West, but you will demand that Singapore release this guy. You will. He's not Satan. You can demonize him as Satan. Just because he photoshopped a couple of horns onto his head. Does not mean he's Satan. He's a child of Gabriel. And he's having nightmares now. I wonder why. I wonder why he's having nightmares. They're not going to stop. He can only dream in red now. I really do feel when a child of Gabriel, a child, an angel, who has been tortured, dreams, the dreams are reflected out into the world. I do believe that. I really do believe that. I feel that. It's 9:53 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in Jacksonville, Florida. Dorian is happening. There's a fair bit of uncertainty, you know, in the mind of anybody at the best of times. I don't know what happens to the mind of someone who is in that situation. I hate to think, really. The Mirror Boy, 166. Nathan David Breeze. Were just changed. 166 is here as well. 16.6 in Sydney. And Hobart. The Mirror Boy. Do you know what equals 174? Puff the Magic Dragon. A sign from Steamboat. There was a sign from Steamboat. There actually was. See, it's 11:54. Gabriel equals 54. And Satan equals 55. They demonized the DJ as if he's Satan, the devil, Lucifer, the one that you can torture because he's evil, right? Oh, well, he's evil, so we can torture him. Either that or you're a psychopath who has no empathy at all. Either way, you're a sadist and you're a sicko and you're pretending to be an enforcer of the law, an enforcer of justice. Singapore has been getting nastier and nastier for decades. And it's time people stood up and said, listen, just because you're a small island state, especially because you're a small island state, do you expect people to keep coming on holidays to Singapore? Do you really expect that people are going to keep coming and spending their money in Singapore or even using Singapore Airlines? Really? Do you really think that's going to last forever when people start to learn the reality of what you do to people there? It's not punishment. It's torture. Punishment is 139. Torture is 117. And it's sick. It's depraved. It's criminal. It's the worst. You're the worst types of criminals there are. And the monster, the reflection in the weather, is a direct reflection of you in Singapore. The Singapore monster. Dangerous. Monster. The cane equals 56. The cane. It's a whip. It's 2019 and people are being strapped to trestles and flogged so hard that the scars last for life. I've said it a few times now. Unless you can show us the DJ's bum is not scarred, then I know what you did to this guy. And I'm not okay with it. Not even 1% okay with it. Not at all. It's disgusting. It's horrible. It's horrifying. It's the hurricane. It's not the hurricane. It's the hurricane. That's what it is in Singapore. The hurricane. And they use people as like a human example of don't do this or this is what will happen to you, and then it's silence. Total silence, and it's so disturbing. So disturbing. I'm going to bring us up to the... Actually, I'll flick, because we're in real time now, right? CNN Tonight is coming up. So I'll press record on that. And I'll flick through a couple of things. So you can see we're in real time on here as well as on the laptop. Anderson Cooper, that's what's on now. And then it will flip over. It's almost the end of this show. Australia's weather. Let's go to that.
Need to go, that stuff's all...
Restaurants. The best rooms. And, well, the best just about everything.
And then back.
I have, and I think it's possible for anybody to do it. And really, what are we looking for? We're just looking to have better relationships with people and be a little more content with our lives. I don't know. What do I know, Anderson? You understand? I wish my name was Anderson. Can you imagine if I was an Anderson? It wouldn't fit this face, right? Got to look like you to be an Anderson.
Well, I don't even know what that means.
Hey, I don't know. You're an Anderson.
Did you know that Anderson is a very popular first name in Brazil?
Is it really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I think the name Howard is on the list of popular names. I think it actually just broke into, I think it's 990 now.
990.
It's binge night at the Jacksons. 4
So this
episodes in, 1 to go.
The Australian Weather Channel. It's in the ads at the moment. So I'll go to... What other... Fox News. Let's see what's on there.
Hurricane Category 4, continuing coverage right here on Fox News. It's coming up on the coast. Don't mess around with this storm. Watch Fox News and they'll give you the latest. The Ingram angle is next. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
I'm Lauren Ingram. This is a special edition of the Ingram Angle from Washington tonight. Ahead, we're going to show you some of the most creative media excuses for that damming up.
No thanks.
Strengthens to a Category 4 storm as it barrels towards the US state of Florida. And rising Australian star Alex de Minaur pulls off an incredible victory at the US Open. Hello, Gemma Vanessa with ABC News. And checking the weather in the capitals now. Mostly sunny in Brisbane, a few showers in Sydney, some early fog in Canberra and light frost. Sunny in Melbourne, partly cloudy for Hobart and Adelaide, some morning showers in Perth and a sunny day for Darwin. The Tamil family seized from country Queensland and fighting deportation has been moved to Christmas Island. Reporter Rachel Milley has more from Brisbane.
The lawyer for the family has confirmed that she's received notification that the family has indeed been moved to Christmas Island during the night. She said that she woke to the news, but she'd received an email during the night from the minister's lawyers informing her that the family has been moved to Christmas Island. The friend of the family, Angela Fredericks, she's from Biloela in central Queensland. She's been a friend and an advocate for the family in the past few years while they fought the deportation order. She also said that she received a text message from the family in the early hours of this morning confirming that they had been moved to Christmas Island. Karina Ford, the lawyer, says this is going to make her job more difficult in representing them in this federal court injunction proceeding. She said that communication with her clients is now obviously one step more difficult, and if she needs to get documents signed, then it's going to be a much more difficult process. This morning, the Home Affairs Department wouldn't comment about the move to Christmas Island. A spokesperson has issued a statement to the ABC saying that because it is before the court, it would be inappropriate for the department to comment. And at this stage, that's all that the government has had to say. Karina Ford has said that this injunction allows the younger daughter, as you said, to stay in Australia until Wednesday. She said that she received an assurance from the government yesterday that the family wouldn't be separated, even though the injunction only technically applies to the younger daughter. So in the days before the Wednesday deadline, that will be heard before the federal court in Melbourne.
Assistant Minister Zed Seselja says processing and the courts have determined the family are not asylum seekers.
Is that it's been assessed a number of times by the courts and they've been found not to be owed protection, and so there's always in the midst of a very strong and successful border protection regime, there are always difficulties in how you implement it. But if we have rules, if we enforce those rules, if we allow the courts to make judgments, well, that's still, I think, a pretty fair process, even though the individual circumstances, I acknowledge, can be very difficult.
Minister Katie Gallagher says the government's treatment of the family is against community sentiment.
Goes to show just how cruel the government's being with this family. The minister has the capacity to intervene in special circumstances. I think there's no doubt this family qualify for that. They've used their powers to intervene in other circumstances, such as when au pairs need to stay in the country.
A man has died after a house fire in southwest Sydney. Emergency services arrived at a house in Ambervale this morning.
Courts, they don't always get it right, I can tell you that. Sometimes governments are the most cruel people of all. Nothing worse than being held in the captivity of torturers.
After a water main burst under a busy Sydney road in Western Sydney. Emergency services have been responding to the burst main on Bringelly Road in the suburb of Kingswood. Authorities say more than 1 million litres of water spewed out of the main at around 8 in the morning. Drivers have been advised to avoid the area until further notice. Fire Inspector Kernan Lambert says several young children, disabled and elderly people had to be evacuated from their properties.
It's a fairly large main, approximately 375 millimetres in size. The break itself has been quite large, and there's been a large flooding of water that's come from that broken main. As a result of the water that's come out, we've had flooding in approximately 100 houses over an area of about 5 or 6 streets. We believe in excess of 1 million litres of water has flooded. As a result of that flooding, we've responded 8 fire trucks here today. And at the moment, what we're doing is we're mainly concerned, our major priority is the safety of the residents.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has wrapped up his visit to Timor-Leste, taking part in celebratory events to mark 20 years since the vote for independence. Thousands of Timorese turned out to celebrate the anniversary at a national party outside the capital, Dili. Southeast Asia correspondent Anne Barker has more.
Well, as you can see, around me here is a sea of Timorese people, all celebrating the 20th anniversary of independence. Around me are thousands of people from the very older generations who remember the occupation under the Indonesians and voted in the independence referendum in 1999, 20 years ago today, as well as the very young, including a lot of people who were not born in 99, but understand from their parents how important it is to remember independence. Of course, it's not only about the anniversary of independence. Timorese are celebrating the ratification of the Maritime Treaty with Australia. The Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been in Dili today meeting Timorese leaders, and both countries have put the final signatures on that treaty, which comes into effect today. Timor-Leste is hoping that that treaty will underpin its economy in the years ahead by giving it the lion's share of royalties from oil and gas fields in the Timor Sea. It's come after years of negotiation, and Scott Morrison praised Timor-Leste for the progress it's made since independence. Scott Morrison has also announced 2 major funding packages for Timor-Leste, one to improve the country's connectivity with an undersea fibre optic cable linking it to Australia, and the other funding and assistance to help build a navy base on the north coast of Timor. The Timorese government has also asked Australia to help it develop its skill base in the years ahead through education and training programs.
Hurricane Dorian has strengthened to a Category 4 storm as it moves towards the coast of the US. The storm is generating winds of nearly 200 kilometres an hour, and state of emergency has been declared in Florida. The storm is expected to grow even stronger as it passes the northwest Bahamas over the weekend, ahead of landfall in the US early next week. Speaking before leaving for the presidential retreat at Camp David, Donald Trump said he had cancelled a planned trip to Poland to remain informed about the storm.
The
hurricane is roaring and it could be a big one. We're hoping that it maybe makes a right and goes up north, but that's about a 5% chance. It's not looking good. And it's one of the biggest hurricanes we've seen in a long time. So it could be very devastating.
Tensions are running high in Hong Kong after authorities declared a mass pro-democracy rally illegal. The protest was planned to mark the 5th anniversary of Beijing's landmark decision to deny direct democracy in Hong Kong. Despite being charged again for organising public assemblies, pro-democracy leader Joshua Wong has urged supporters not to give up the fight.
On our fight, we shall not surrender. And I urge international communities could send a clear message to President Xi. Sending troops or using emergency ordinance is not the way out. We will continue our fight no matter how they arrest and prosecute us.
The UK Prime Minister John Major has joined legal action to stop the current PM, Boris Johnson, from suspending Parliament for up to 5 weeks. A Scottish court dismissed an order to halt the parliamentary suspension.
Australia played a crucial role in establishing peace in the weeks and months after that vote, and there is a feeling of gratitude towards the Australian people over the role that they played leading that interfaith peacekeeping force, pushing back against the pro-Indonesia militia. But there are also some issues of tension that remain here in East Timor, Charlotte, between Australia and East Timor. One of those is over Australia's decision to prosecute witness K. Of course, he was the Australian spy who blew the whistle on Australian attempts